Welcome to the Anti-Architect Podcast. I am your host, Christian Giordano. As president and owner of the design firm Mancini Duffy, I am driven by a quest for learning and radically changing the industry. With this podcast, I'm hoping to improve the industry that I'm so passionate about by taking a critical look at how architects work through a variety of voices and shared experiences. Hello, Anti-Architect Podcast listeners. I'm excited to have Mark Benhar as my guest today here on the Anti-Architect Podcast in our New York studio. Mark Benhar is the founder and president of Benhar Office Interiors, a MillerKnoll Platinum certified office furniture dealer in New York City. With over 30 years of experience in the contract office furniture and architectural glass walls business, Mark has established himself as a leading expert in the industry. Starting as an account executive in 1985, Mark's career trajectory led him to create one of New York's largest furniture and architectural products dealerships in 2002. As one of the top Herman Miller dealers in New York City, he has had the privilege of working with numerous prestigious companies and executives in real estate, architecture, project management, and facilities. Under Mark's leadership, Benhar Office Interiors has flourished into a respected industry leader, driven by his goal to be the top resource for contract office interiors in the New York area. Mark's leadership philosophy emphasizes creating an inspiring, fun, and collaborative work environment that prioritizes employee well-being and professional growth. This approach has not only fostered a strong company culture, but also earned recognition, including Crain's Best Places to Work in New York City award. Mark's passion for mentoring and coaching, combined with his unwavering enthusiasm, continuously propels the company forward, making a positive impact on the office interiors industry. Mark, thanks so much for taking the time to be here.
Thank you, Christian.
I'm laughing because you are a pretty dynamic guy, which I love, and we always have a good time when we get together.
Absolutely.
And I think, I don't know if you remember this, but the first time that I met you, I had just started at Mancini. I probably met you along the way when I was at HLW before, but I had met you. I don't know if you remember that, but you told me a story about Ralph Mancini and about how you had gotten Mancini hired for a project. And Mancini had never reciprocated. And I remember thinking to myself, like, what the hell's with this guy? Like, I don't know this guy. He's asking me these things. But the way that you said it was like, I took it as a challenge. And you were like, hey, I brought you guys into stuff, but I never saw anything back. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, we can do that. We can figure that out. Eventually, I think we did work together. We got Under Armour and stuff like that. So
absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yeah, please. So I think there's a misconception that furniture dealers, can't help, architects and designers, right? That they're just a vendor, they're just there, and, we need them as a resource, but, there's no sort of collaborating with them or going after projects with them. So what has your experience been with other architects and kind of partnering on things, and how does that all work?
Yeah, I think it's a big ecosystem, right? We're all kind of chasing the same type of clients, the same industries. So for sure, from a collaboration standpoint, it's a much better way to do things. And yeah, I do remember that story, and I do remember meeting you, and just want to say that I'm very impressed in how you've built your business and expanded it into different verticals, different areas, of different locations. You're doing this, and all the stuff you do in the lab is fantastic. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I do remember talking to you about that story. It was probably something that I didn't talk about for 20 years. I just needed to get it off my chest. And if Ralph was there, and I didn't know Ralph very well. See, the thing about that, I think the reason I probably told you that story is that I did help Mancini on an 80,000 foot project. I could have helped anyone. And it wasn't Ralph. It was someone else in the organization. Mm. And in hearing stuff about Ralph after, I think that if he had known that, it would have been a different way, right? So getting back to that, I think people like myself and my competitors should not be discounted in the people that we know and the influence that we have and the friends we have. And you have friends. And so certainly there are times that we do recommend architects or other professionals in the industry, as you do. So that's something I love to do and I'm proud to do. Just last week, we introduced 2 project management firms to a client of ours that came to us and said, I think we're in over our head. It's a landlord build. It's 20,000 feet. And they don't need an architect because the building's providing that, which is, the new model, I guess, for those sizes. But they needed someone to watch over the project. So, yes, it happens more than you would think, maybe. And there are people that we do recommend, just as people recommend us. Maybe when I was younger, I kept score a little bit more, in a way. I guess everyone does a little bit. I'm not going to be shy about that, but I don't have I've heard people have like a list. I've really heard this, like I can tell you who, but I won't say it on the podcast.
Well, it's funny.
I don't do that, but, just the people in general who are helpful to us as well. I wish I had a job to give out every day. It's like my goal, right? Like you would like that too.
Yeah, I'm the same way. So I do keep a list, but almost in reverse. Like I know those that have helped, and maybe it stems from our early conversation, right? When I kind of started, I keep a list I never thought about that. I keep a list in my head of those that have helped us, and how am I going to help them? And I love more than anything being able to get somebody a project. Like we just got a project manager on a project, which is very rare for an architecture firm to do that. So it's so great to be able to do that. It's like, hey, we really do appreciate so much we were able to get you work back. It's
amazing.
hard. There's a certain pecking order to this industry, and you feel like you're taking all the time from certain people. And I don't like to be like that at all. So.
Yeah, look, the architect, I've been in this business almost 40 years. You just reminded me that on that introduction. God, getting old. But it used to be where the architects owned everything. And I saw over time where the architects started losing control, like project management and all that stuff. So, to be able to help the project managers who are very important in our marketplace is a nice feeling. So I understand how you feel.
Yeah. So the furniture business, I want to touch on that. You're only the second furniture person I've had on the podcast, and it's a complex business. It's arguably more complex and more successful than what most architecture firms are, right? I mean, I've seen very impressive numbers thrown around from what furniture companies do. So for those that don't know, that listen to the podcast, what is and I know it's you're more than a furniture dealer, right? It's you're more comprehensive than that. But what is the core business of what you do? What's the service that you provide?
Yeah, it is a complicated business. I wish, I always say, like, when you go to a restaurant and say, can I have a choice of white rice or brown rice? Just keep it nice and simple. There's so many choices in our business, it gets crazy, right? We represent over 300 different manufacturers. Those manufacturers have hundreds of different products and lines and model numbers. Make your mind go crazy. So there's a lot to take in and manage. Of course, like anything else, the 80-20 rule, you try to do 80% of your business with 20% of your vendor partners but you still have to know a lot. Our main role is to help curate, procure, and manage office furniture for corporate clients. Right? That's our core responsibilities. When I say corporate clients, of course, we're starting to, over the years, expand like you into healthcare, into education and some other verticals, hospitality and such, but still it's the same type of thing. We have to, sometimes we get in early enough that we're helping curate the product, and sometimes we're not. We're just more in a procurement, but there's always some element of curation, even if you curated the product in an RFP. Right. We can talk about that later, how those go, but then we're brought on and we won. There's still that portion of time from award to order that we're helping change things, curate things, make suggestions, which we like to do.
Right.
So that's why I use the word curate.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're doing everything and curating the whole thing as you would as a designer, and other times we have a smaller portion. The procurement portion is very big, right? Like how to manage all the manufacturers, all the product, get it right, order it on time, know the threats, know what manufacturers that are good partners and are reliable and not. The timelines, manage that whole process from beginning to end. And then I say procure, managing like the project manager of it. There's the field supervision of it. There's a lot. We become partners with the team, right? We sit down with you and the contractor and the PM and the client, and we love that part, to be really ingratiated in the team. And I always like to talk about how, we're not sitting there as wallflowers. We want to challenge and analyze everything, because you have to be able to express your expertise, right? And I think that's what I try to instill in our people to do. You're the furniture expert. You're not a order taker. So if something doesn't look right, you say something. Yeah. Right? And I think we do that well. And I'm always trying to teach my people about looking at those types of things and doing. Just yesterday, I did it with one of my teammates. Everyone has their own judgments, but I was we just finished a beautiful 45,000 foot bank, and I was in conference room, and I saw that there were like adjustable height arms in a conference room, and like you got out of the conference room and all of a sudden one was high, one was low, and I'm like, maybe this should have been fixed. Maybe think about that in the future. Oh, the client wanted that, but sometimes say it's not good. It's not. Here's the reason why maybe you shouldn't do that. So, I like to be. Our best and most rewarding projects are when a client says and refers to us as a trusted advisor, right? Mm-hmm. That's great. I mean, I'm sure you feel the same way. Absolutely. Like, as a professional, you're going through school and the architecture, it almost comes with it. You're a trusted advisor. When you're a furniture salesman, you're like, you're not a trusted advisor. You got a bad rap. But those are the best and most rewarding jobs and clients that we have. And we have several over the years that think of us as trusted advisors. And that's our goal. When we win a project, we tell it to my clients right there. We hope that at the end, you think of us as a trusted advisor. But not only this project, for years to come.
Yeah, yeah. So
I don't know if I explained what we do well, but that's kind of our core of what we do.
Even further, right? You obviously you're purchasing the furniture, from the manufacturer or many manufacturers,
Too
right?
Many.
And then how does it work? You're storing it, and then you're bringing it to site, and you're installing it, and so on. Yeah.
So I would say the average 50,000 foot project that we work on could have 40 to 60 manufacturers on a project. It's pretty complicated. Yeah. I would rather it be one or two, right? We represent MillerKnoll, and they have a great family of brands like the other manufacturers do. And it'd be a lot easier to go one-stop shop, but it doesn't work that way a lot. Whether it's the design firm that's involved and what's other things, the client has something unique. Those family brands didn't have it. So on average, it's a lot of different manufacturers. That poses the biggest challenge. So yes, we're then procuring or purchasing the furniture from those various manufacturers, sending them purchase orders, tracking it into that warehouse. We actually work with third-party warehouses. We don't own our own, like some of the, I think the guest that you had on last time, Steel Case Dealer. But we have great partners in that. So yes, it comes into the warehouse. We own it. We're responsible for it. And until the project is ready to deliver, we then deliver it and install it. We have this project schedule that we adhere to, and it works out. So yes, we procure it, we buy it, we pay for it, we store it, we deliver it, install it, and then the project hopefully is punch list and done. That's kind of the quick.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, the average 50,000 foot project, it takes 6 to 9 months.
I'm sure.
And the earlier that we get involved, just like anything else, and any partner that you might interview, I'm sure says it, the better and the earlier we're in, the more successful the project is.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt about it. And that things have changed for the better, I think, there. I mean, there's always projects. I get a call like, hey, I'm moving in 3 weeks. Like, oh my God. But I've seen a trend over the last 2 or 3 years, and I think COVID had something to do with it, where people had a plan because of the supply chain, which was bad, but maybe the good silver lining that came out of it was that people are used to planning a little early and bringing partners in earlier. That, to me, really helps deliver successful projects. And we're seeing more of that now.
So you mentioned the RFP process. So I'm curious about that. Yeah. So that basically means that and I'll do it from my perspective, right? The architect, we've designed whatever the heck it is that we've designed, a 50,000 square foot, corporate office, and we have selections in mind of what we want. It may be based on a certain manufacturer. It may be just generic, or, it may be a hodgepodge of whatever Revit files we had at that moment, quite frankly.
We see it in the drawings.
Yes. And And so then it goes to bid to a series of manufacturers, and you guys have to come in and A, make sense of it, and then B, put it all together, and as you said, do all those other steps to get it on site. Yeah. So the RFP process, though, I would say my perspective has changed, right? When I was a designer sitting and doing it, if it wasn't that chair and if it wasn't that exact thing that we had, shown the client, I would have, said to the furniture people, absolutely not. It has to be this. It has to be that. Now, as the business owner and wanting to keep the client happy and keep the projects moving and keep other projects moving, not that I don't care, but I have a different perspective on that. So how does it work with you guys in that process?
It's not easy, I can say, because one of this podcast is about giving advice to you from our perspective in our industry of what you do right and what you do wrong. And I'm not saying the RFP process is wrong all the time, but it's hard because we don't always get consistent specs. In the olden days, when I first started in this business 40 years ago, as you just said the specs were meticulous. Yeah. They were like beautiful and everything, model number.
You had time.
At time. It was just unbelievable. We
don't have that time anymore.
But it's changed. It's not just recent. It's been for years.
Yeah.
So, we see good RFP packages and we see bad RFP packages, and it becomes a challenge. Hopefully there's a good amount of time. People don't always give enough time. So you have this RFP, and then some people say it's due in a week, but the RFIs are due like 3 days. So then you get it back from the RFI and you only have 2 days to do it, and it becomes pretty difficult. Then you don't want to be the guy to say, hey, can we get an extra 2 or 3 days? But oftentimes I say, don't be shy. If you're not going to do it right, so it's not easy, I can say. So we get RFPs. They are packages. Sometimes they're very detailed, and they have all the specs and all the drawings, and oftentimes they're very vague. So I can't tell you that it's consistent anymore, which is frustrating to us. We then try to elicit out of the architectural design firm what they're thinking and qualifications and RFIs and get answers and try to do our best to interpret it. Sometimes we've lost because we've been very thorough.
Yeah,
and ours, I want to say, is right.
Yep.
And we were thorough, and maybe the thoroughness hurt us because maybe our price was high, but it was the right spec, and we found that we lost. And then later on, it was a problem. They didn't get it right. We had to make changes. Oh my God! And that's part of the problem. One of the problems that we have with the industry. And I don't know the exact answer to that, but one of the answers is this getting in early, cutting out the RFP, maybe doing interviews. We're seeing more of those. Bring on a partner earlier, have us be your teammate, and let's build to a spec. Unless someone specifically wants a particular line, like they have to have Steelcase or they have to have Hayworth or they have to have MillerKnoll, which we have, then you have to do a bid. But if it's more about like furniture solutions and we're open-minded, I think that the latter example works much better, and now we're all towing the same rope to create the right products and the vast amount that we have within a certain budget and time frame.
Yeah.
So that's in our nirvana, in an ideal world. It doesn't always happen, but there's still the RFP process, and again, sometimes we win and we lose. I'll tell you one thing. It's very rare, if not ever, and I'm sure other people listening to this will agree, that from the time that we win or any of our competitors win to the time we order, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So there's this time that you win, and now you're just like, okay, let's sit down. Oh, we didn't really mean that. We want to change that. Oh, well, that was just a placeholder. Oh, client said, oh, what do you mean? I don't like it this way. So there's that time frame that you need to build into the process. And I don't think people really realize how much time that is.
Yeah.
This morning, I won't name the company, but a big project management firm called me and told me they were going to send us a bid on Monday and that they were looking to move in. I laughed. Mid-January, and they're going to issue the bid, give us 2 weeks, and award it like early to mid-November. I don't know what they were thinking. First of all, from the time you're awarded to the time you order, it's for a project of 50,000 feet. I think this was going to be at least 4 or 5 weeks of back and forth, cross the T's, dot the I's, change.
Getting the
so you're ordering it right when they want to move in. So I called them up. I'm like, I just want to say, whether we win it or not, this timeline really doesn't work.
Yeah.
She goes, oh, thank you for telling me that. Can you say that in the RFP? And I said, yeah, I can. I think what you should do is give an ideal timeline and ask all the dealers to comment on it. She says, we have some time. Thank you for saying that. So That
Well,
could
that's
be
good.
part of like people don't have realistic expectations of how long these RFPs and the process to get it right takes.
Yeah, we get in trouble with that too, where it's, someone wants to get, do schematic design in 2 weeks, design development in 3 weeks, and construction documents in 5 weeks. And somehow we're supposed to have approvals and all of that in there and coordinate with mechanical. And when you point that out, it's kind of like, well, you want to bid on this job or not kind of thing. And
You get
you're
that
stuck, you know, and you go, well, let's hope that the schedule gets extended. I don't know. Right. And sometimes we can't do it, or we put in the alternate schedule, right, which we know is what it's going to be. So I agree. The early collaboration on not only furniture, but with construction, with cost management, all that sort of stuff, it really makes an enormous difference.
It does.
So as far as, again, like going along with the furniture, kind of how it works, there are the major, let's call it the major furniture lines, right? It's Steelcase, MillerKnoll, Hayworth, I'm sure the All Steel or something like that, right?
Yeah, there's three right now, the majors. Used to be four, right?
So Miller bought Knoll, right? Which that was like, or Herman Miller bought Knoll. That's obviously a very big deal in the world of corporate office furniture.
Yeah, shocking.
Can you tell us a little bit of the history of like both companies and I guess what makes them special and kind of how that all came about?
Yeah, I mean, I've been a Herman Miller dealer first.
Right.
Herman Miller Knoll are iconic brands.
Exactly.
Right? They're iconic brands in that they have famous designers were their lead designers, from Florence Knoll to Ray and Charles Eames. And most people, whether you're in the corporate world or even residential, know them because these are pieces that are in the Museum of Modern Art. They're classic. They're timeless. And that's what both brands were known for. And they competed against each other. They both had these great reputations for classic design, modern design, and then, became powerhouses in their own right in the corporate world when it came to open plan and private offices and collaborative areas, and oftentimes competed against each other. When I became a Herman Miller dealer, when I started this business 22 years ago, it was a privilege, to get a major line. They hadn't added a dealer in New York in over 25 years, so it was a special thing that we were able to be in the right moment of time. I caused some ripples in the industry then, but that's what I do. And it was great. And Knoll was someone we competed against all the time. It had a cachet. I actually was, prior to becoming Miller, I tried to get Knoll. I knew the guys who were running Knoll, and at that time, after September 11th, the economy was not great. They said, we'd love to have you, Benhar, but right now business isn't good. We already have 2 or 3 dealers. We can't. If you wait a year or two, we'll talk to you. And I wasn't waiting. So the fact that now that I have both is kind of bittersweet. Well, not bittersweet. It's sweet, actually, not bittersweet. So that's who they both were, and we competed against each other all the time. We lost against them. We won against them. Of course, there's Steelcase and Hayworth. Though in New York, before I started my business, I worked for a big Steelcase dealer, and so Steelcase is a great company. They're not known for design. They're just known for like efficiencies and producing great, good furniture, but not necessarily on the high end design side. But they just get it right, and their dealers are really strong around the country, and operationally, I think they excel. Yeah. So they're a great company too, and I came from that environment and learned a lot. And then there was Hayworth, and there still is. And Hayworth was in New York. It wasn't really a big brand. I think recently, they wake up a sleeping giant, but recently they've been more active in New York, and it could be for 2 reasons. I think one is W.B. Wood, who was a Miller dealer for many, many years, and I know the owner, left and became a Hayworth dealer. So they have a good dealer in that. They finally have a good partner. And B, I think the purchase that Miller made of Knoll actually created a little vacuum and helped them because, you guys always want to throw 3 major furniture guys in the mix. And all of a sudden it was Steelcase and Miller. We were always invited to this. So it was Steelcase, Miller, and Knoll a lot. Those were the first 3, in my opinion, that I saw in RFPs. Hayworth didn't make the list a lot. Technion didn't make the list a lot. All Steel didn't make the list as much. So I felt really fortunate because we always got a shot. We're always up to bat, whether it was my dealership or another, but Miller was always in the mix, and it was an easy way to get into an opportunity. So when Miller then bought Knoll, now you got MillerKnoll as one, and they're, I think, technically the largest by volume. You got Steelcase, and now, of course, the third is Hayworth. Hayworth's huge also. They just weren't as big in New York, and I think they're making momentum now. So basically that's the way the majors work. Then you got what I call the major minors. They're still big, but Technion, All Steel, I don't know if I'm forgetting one, but those I think the two major minors, so to speak, where they're still good brands, but not as big and maybe not as thought of as much from the design community. And New York, as you know, I'm talking to a big design firm here. Yeah. New York is a design-driven market. Yep. It always has been. So for me, having Herman Miller as a design-driven company and Knoll now as a design-driven company together, I was very excited about that and still am.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. Yeah. And so some listeners may know, I know you know this, but my wife works for MillerKnoll, which is funny. She was an independent rep for many years, kind of selling small lines, and a lot of them were purchased by MillerKnoll, which is funny. So she kind of reunited with a lot of her old colleagues.
Yeah, I love it. I know Nina before I knew you.
So I asked her to give me a question. I said, well, what's a good question to ask Mark? And so her question is, what can MillerKnoll do to step it up in the marketplace or continue to step it up in the marketplace and truly dominate the corporate office world? Is it more products, new products? Is it more people, better people? What do you see as like, what does MillerKnoll need to do to really now take the lead?
Yeah, that's okay. I got to think about that. You should have sent me the question beforehand. It's a good question. I think that the integration, look, Nina's coming from a place maybe that she's involved now. So the integration, like any integration, takes some time. Yeah. So I think the integration has taken a little bit longer than we all kind of wanted, but they're getting, it's happening now. They got it right. I'm excited. I haven't seen it yet, but Knoll. It was awkward because Knoll. They're still going to have separate identities, but Knoll was uptown, Miller was downtown. Just this next week or two, the new Knoll showroom's opening in the same building as the Herman Miller showroom. Cool. I think that's going to help. All the brands are going to be under one building. I think that's going to help in the New York market. So I can only talk about right now from the New York perspective. Yeah. Yeah, certainly they have good people. I think they're looking for some more people to fill, so some people left in the integration as well. Okay. So yeah, I think that is good. Their leadership is strong. Yeah. I just think. What do I think? I think they're strong. I just think it's going to take some time for the marketplace to it kind of get its equilibrium and for people to understand who the new MillerKnoll is, right? Because I think some people are confused that, is it Miller? Is it Knoll?
I don't know. I think it's cool.
I think it's cool, but they are separate. MillerKnoll is the corporate entity, but there's still two separate brands. Okay. And that's what they're trying to do. Okay. So does that work? I think time will tell. Yeah. I was worried many years ago, Herman Miller bought a very high-end wood case good line, it might be before your time, called Helicon. Okay. And Helicon, they basically gobbled it up, and within 2 years, no one knew what Helicon was, right? Okay. Somehow it just disappeared. And I think that, I don't know if this has to do with their lessons learned, but like having those separate brands, there's still two great brands. Yeah, as you said, and it's good iconic. From a dealer standpoint and for us to offer our clients two distinctive great brands, I think still allow them to be dominant in the marketplace.
Right. Awesome.
Yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, no, I like
I'm sticking to
it. Is there ever a case where the furniture dealer model goes like the car dealer model? You have Ray Catena Audi, Ray Catena Mercedes. Is there ever a chance where you guys as dealers can deal all of the different types of lines?
I hope so. I don't think so. Yeah, I often try to explain our business to lay people about and make it a comparison to the car business because they don't understand. Right. Even like people in the industry. We deal with a lot of real estate brokers and they like, tell me, how does this work? What do you represent? How does that work? So I like to say it's like a car. I mean, yes, for the most part, there are big supercar dealers that own many brands, but there's still many that if you're an Audi dealer, you're usually not a BMW dealer. If you're a BMW dealer, you're usually not a Mercedes dealer. And that's how I try to equate it. But if you just want to buy a car, even though I'm a BMW dealer, I might have Ford and Hyundai and Infiniti and other brands. So I don't know if that answers your question. I don't think, I would like it to happen, but I don't think it will ever happen. But I never say never, because things change all the time, maybe with private equity and, succession planning. I think the only way that happens is like if the next generation, there's not a good next generation to take over dealers and such, when private equity gets so strong with it. Not every manufacturer is allowing private equity to gobble up dealerships. I know MillerKnoll is very strict about that. From an owner standpoint, I don't like that, because you want, it's one option as an owner when you build a brand. How to exit. There are others. But you want some flexibility with that. But the reason that they think like that is they take pride in the continuity of the dealership. And many dealers have been around for generations, right? And whether their families take it over or they sell it to someone, the brand lasts for a long time. And they want that continuity. And private equity is something that goes in 3 to 5 years later, sells, and they're scared of that.
Do you worry about the model in general being disrupted by like an Amazon? And I use Amazon just as like the big thing, right? Like, is there a point where you go on? I know, I'm sure you've heard of Kanoa Supply, which is Lance Amato had him on the podcast.
I've been in a lot of tests with Lance.
So there's a lot of cool tools and things like that. But at some point, does somebody come along and invent the tool that it's click of a button and the desks show up on a floor miraculously?
I've been thinking about that model for 7 years, because I think it's cool and it should happen. But our business is too complicated. It's just too complicated. So I've many times thought about like leaving my business for a year, becoming a startup mentality, get some young people and do this. And so, yes, it could happen. And there's been a few models that have tried. It's not easy. I think it can work on a small basis. Like you need 40 benches in white, and 4 private offices, a few collaborative areas. You have these choices, you click. It probably could work that way. But for sophisticated projects, there's just too much that goes into it. The space planning, the field measurements, the power, the specials, the uniqueness of what they want, everything,
like all that stuff,
the project management of it. I'll never say never. Because things get figured out, but I think it's difficult.
That's how I see our business.
I have recently seen a good new startup that will help us with technology do some of those things to be faster and quicker. So I'm always like you, looking at new technologies that can help us. And I won't say the name yet because I just don't know enough about it, but I did see something that impressed me a lot. So I think there'll be tools that we as dealers can use that can help with that type of concept.
So I want to talk a little bit about what I call the office of the future, because it's always something that I find interesting, especially sort of the pre-COVID. Offices obviously evolved, right? It used to have big workstations and no windows and all that sort of stuff. But that was now quite a long time ago, 20, 25 years ago, probably. We evolved into this open office. And I think pre-COVID, it was one way. And then I think the hope post-COVID, we were going to have a totally different office. It turns out that the post-COVID office looks exactly like the pre-COVID office.
I'm glad you said that.
Only with less people in the office and more people on headphones with those that are in the office. So
I hate that.
It's bizarre. So I guess the question is, have we figured out the office and this is the model? Is there really an office of the future kind of thing? Or,
I would never discount the fact that things will change in some way, right? I agree with you, and a lot of people have asked you and me over the last 3 years being in the industry, so tell me how the office has changed. Are people coming in? How does it look different? Isn't that? What are you seeing? Right. I look at all the floor plans and things we're doing. It looks just like before COVID. There's a few more phone booths. Right. There's a few more collaborative areas.
Whatever,
But we were doing that before COVID. Guys like you were designing that into it. So, so I do agree there. I see more and more clients coming back. I don't think it'll ever look. You have the financials in certain sectors that will be back 5 days a week and already back, and there's going to be some that totally changed for forever. you know,
I agree.
where hybrid is acceptable and people are productive in that way. And we know there's pros and cons to both. As far as the office of the future, I still think you're going to need an office for collaboration and learning.
Yeah.
And I don't think we'll ever go back to high panels and you know, just total cubicle type silos. I think that the way it is now is something that works. But I'm asked this a lot. I don't have the right answer for you. I don't know. I don't have like this grand scheme of what it's going to be.
And neither do we.
And I listen to a lot of podcasts like you do and read and such. And I don't think.
It's funny that you say that.
Right?
The drawings that come out of our office look just like the old drawings. They really do. I mean, let's be honest. You know, we try to couch it a little bit differently, or
it might be some movable thing. Like I'm seeing a little bit of movable. I thought in COVID, like it would be great to have real modular movable furniture.
Yeah.
If that ever happened again.
Yeah.
Because everyone was trying to reconfigure or put screens or whatever, and if God forbid that happened again, that would have been a good thing. So I've seen some people try to attack that, but not on a very large scale.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe someone will figure it out along the way.
Yeah.
So if you had to pick one thing, what annoys you about architects?
Yeah. I have a list here.
Oh, nice.
I have a list.
A whole list. Great.
Okay.
Someone write this down.
Yeah. One thing. Well, first of all, I want to say, of course, we love you as architects, and we collaborate with you, and we're friendly with you, and we appreciate what you guys do as an industry. So that's good. But this show is about each professional talking about some of the challenges they have with architects and lessons learned. And I have to pick one thing.
Yeah, you can pick multiple things if you want.
Well, talking about spec writing.
Yeah.
Right. So we see inconsistency in spec writing, and we just talked about that earlier. It was impromptu. Not a lot of the architects know how to write a spec for furniture. We actually started a CU course 7 or 8 years ago that we still give. We probably did it here called Furniture 201.
Yeah.
And, it was 7, 8 years ago that I started this with our team. And it was all about like, all right, designer Furniture 101, they went to college, they know the basics. Let's do 201. Let's teach them the difference between a manufacturer and a dealer. Let's teach them how to write a spec, what's important, what's the roles when you go to one versus the other. And so we did that. And I think it helped. Yeah. But I don't know if there's enough education there, whether it's in school and even when they get to a firm like this, to really understand that, because the concentration might be another thing. So I do see inconsistency there in the spec writing, and that's frustrating because then it leads to like a lot of questions and the specs are wrong. And then after you get awarded, it's like, oh, well, we wrote that, but that's not what you intended, not what we intended. So it gets a little blurry.
Yeah.
So that to me is a pain point for dealers and for us. That's one thing. And then the other thing is field issues. We constantly, and I think another guest, as I listened to some of the podcasts, might have mentioned it, but taking a little bit more time to not just put a block pan in a conference room, but to think about like where the table is, where the pendant light is, where the TV is. Now we do that in the field, but a lot of times we're finding things were not planned out correctly.
Yeah.
And if a dealer who's maybe doesn't have that discipline then it makes you look bad too, and then you have to stay in the project longer, and then the client gets upset.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that I think myself and my team get frustrated with. But, we deal with it.
Yeah, we've invented some tools on the construction side, the AR, VR side of things to help with that kind of coordination, like where the core drills are supposed to go, how that all gets coordinated. And to defend us, but not really to defend us, right? Like when I first started in the business, it was at Swanky Heat and Connell, there were people that all they did was write furniture specs.
Yeah, I remember them. I was friendly with some of those
They
guys.
would sit, and that's all they did, and they knew everything about the furniture. They knew they had all the the actual books of all the manufacturers' price lists with all the parts and pieces and all this stuff.
Patricia Beam, was she there when you were there?
No, don't know that name.
She was a designer, did a very good furniture.
Yeah, and then that just kind of faded away. And now what we get from clients a lot is, why do you have a separate line item in your proposal for furniture? And we'll say, well, it's a lot of work. We have to do this. We have to do that. We need to do this. Well, take it out. We'll just lean on the furniture dealer for this. And we go, oh, okay, here we
sucks.
go.
My daughter's in the business with us, and we were just talking to her this morning about coming here and talking to you and pain points. And she was like, oh my God, recently it's been so hard on a few projects where we don't know, are we the person leading the bus or the designer involved?
Right.
So you know what's happening in New York over the last 5 years, these 2,000 to even 30,000 foot projects the landlord's building.
Yep.
Architect, you are working for the landlord. You're not getting involved always about the design and the furniture. So there's this vacuum that we come in and we help and we do all that. So it's been good for us. But some of these projects also still have a designer. And that's frustrating. Like, who's leading the charge and the specifying and the picking? And it's happening a lot lately where it's probably because they're not paying the architect enough or anything, and then it leans on us. So I think what would be good for people listening here is setting those clear expectations up front when you're hiring the architect or the furniture dealer. So if the furniture dealer is the one responsible, put that in the RFP. Yeah.
I totally agree, because we end up scrambling, right, to pull all this together at the end, because we don't want to upset the client, and really, was it really in our scope and all those things, and then I have to have that conversation and ask for more money, and that never goes well.
No, I get it. That never goes well.
So tell us a little bit about your origin story, and I'm going to mention, I think you know him, my friend Mike Messenger. We used to, when we go out to dinner, he loves to ask other furniture people this question. And it is, it's no one ever says to themselves when they're growing up, I really want to sell corporate office furniture.
I heard him. I heard you say that.
And it always cracked me up. And so how did you end up in this business?
So I love what Mike says, because I say it all the time, the same thing. So I say this is my thing. There's only two ways you get into this business: by accident and by birth.
That's right.
So I got in by accident, and my children, and I'm very proud that they're in the business, they got in by birth. I didn't ask them to get in, but they chose over years to come in. So interesting story. I've always been a hustler. Hustle is a good word for my generation. I don't know about these days.
I think it's
someone who's very entrepreneurial, always wanted to make a buck, had different businesses. Since I'm 12 years old, I had 2 newspaper routes. I was a good humor man. I had to go buy the inventory, right? And I had to pay for the inventory first, bet that I bought the right products, go sell in the streets and the truck with the ding-a-ling-a-ling.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is great.
Long Island?
I did it in Atlantic Beach, Long Island, near where I grew up. It was great because it was near the beach. I get the suntan a little bit and sell. But, I got up in the morning. I bought the ice cream at 7:38. I was on the truck by 10, and I didn't bring in the truck until 10 or 11 o'clock at night. So I was always very entrepreneurial, and just who I am in my DNA.
Yeah.
So I was in New York City. I was already out of college. I was working for a publication firm, selling directories and mailing lists. Didn't see myself in doing that. I wanted to kind of just be a proposal type of guy. I left that company, and I wanted to become a real estate broker, commercial real estate broker.
I can see you doing that.
And one of my best friends growing up worked for one of the big firms, and his uncle was a powerhouse in the industry, and introduced me to some of the small mid-sized shops. And they all said the same thing as they probably say now: kid, it's going to be 2 to 3 years till you make any money.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't grow up wealthy. My parents working class, which I'm proud of. Mm-hmm. I grew up in a wealthy neighborhood, a lot of wealthy friends, but I was always the guy who had to strive to get more because my parents can only give me so much, which is, and again, it's molded me.
Yeah.
I have this conversation with my friends all the time with nurture versus nature. Yeah, we could talk about that forever.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't see myself going, back home to live. I already lived at college for 4 years. I was working in the city for 2 years. I was making a decent buck to support myself. So I decided not to go that route, only because I didn't give a draw against commission. Mm-hmm. And I didn't see myself waiting on tables at night, working from 7 in the morning to 7 at night. So I didn't take that route. And I was working in the gift industry temporarily. One of my friends owned the gift company. I hated it. I felt like Willie Loman. I was schlepping, this 30-pound case door to door, sweating. I'm like, oh, I hate this. And there was a woman in the gift business who worked with us who went on an interview at a small office furniture dealer called Aronson Office Furniture. When they first started, maybe they're 3 years in, they didn't have a major line. And in the middle of her interview, she was hyping me up. She came back. I said, look, I don't know anything about furniture. I can sell anything. Let me go meet these guys. I met them. They're young guys. I liked them. I started in sales, kind of figured it out real quickly, and started to have some success.
Nice.
So that's how I got into it.
Yeah. And then how did it evolve into you deciding, you know what, I'm going to go and start my own thing?
Yeah, well, I always wanted to start my own thing, but didn't have the wherewithal, the means, the money, and so I left Aronson after 3 years. I love those guys, but they had a lack of resources and lines at that time. They didn't have Knoll. They later on got it right when I was leaving, which was wild. And the owner of Empire, Larry Gazzo, happened to belong to the same golf club as me, and we just happened to be put in an outing together for 5.5 hours in the same cart.
Oh, wow.
And one thing led to another, and he called me. I called him Monday, I don't remember, and we went there, and I was there for almost 15 years.
Yeah, wow.
In that time, I was very entrepreneurial. I did very well, and what was my trajectory? So about 8 years into it, I was going to buy a Knoll dealer in town. It was an older gentleman owned it. It was right when Evans and Best was about to start too. It was called Kramer Office Furniture. Me and a friend were going to buy it, and it didn't happen. There's several reasons it didn't happen, and I stayed at Empire.
Okay.
So, but I always wanted to own my own business. 2001 happened with the Trade Center. Unfortunately, I was a block away from the Trade Center when it fell. I was enveloped in smoke. I couldn't breathe. I thought I was going to be dead that day. It was like a crazy experience. And then the pursuing year, it was not a great economy. And like, if you're going to do it now when things are bad. So kind of just took the leap of faith and did it. And Bob Maurer, who is my current COO, came over with me. And, it was like the motto with us is, you find them, Mark, I'll keep them.
Okay.
Right? So it's a yin and yang, which is great.
I like that.
He started off, he had a minority interest in the company. We started off, we wrote a business plan, and we peddled it around town, as I said, different people. And then someone came to me and said, why don't you talk to Miller? I'm like, all right, let me talk to Miller. And within 3 weeks, it all worked out. And we had an office at an architectural firm. One of my friends, Michael Raitt, he owned Berger Raitt. Let us sit in his office for a year, which was nice. Thank you, Michael and Larry Berger. And we built it from just Bob and I to what now is, a thriving company.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
congrats.
Thank you. That's kind of the origin.
I love it.
Yeah, it's good. It's hard to start from scratch. Yeah. Right. We looked at maybe, my initial thing was like, let's buy an existing. There were a few companies that were looking to sell, but I don't know. After talking to the ownership and whether it was their valuations were too hefty for me or unrealistic, or I felt like I was going to be inheriting their problems. Like, okay, it's going to be harder to start from scratch, but it's us. Yeah. And looking back, it was the best thing I ever did.
That's amazing. So what makes Benhar Office different in the marketplace?
I get that question all the time. This morning I was writing an email to our staff about a technology that we're instituting, and we're having trouble getting the technology and the processes down. Okay. We really are. But, change is hard, right? Yeah. It's a robust platform that change is just hard. And in my message to them today, I said, guys, because I'm trying to get some more feedback about it, I said, guys, we all selling the same things as our competitors, right? What's going to make us different are things like this, the technology and the processes that we do differently than other people that make us deliver a better experience to our clients. So please give me the feedback so I can help you. Yeah. That's the message there, right? Like, we're always trying to improve. We're always looking at continuous improvement processes. I'm a curious guy. I'm always looking at new things. Much to my detriment, my management team hates it. Oh, Mark, you're at YPO. I'm at Vistage. Oh, Mark was at Vistage this week. He came back with a new idea.
Yeah, that's definitely a new.
I get it. So I can't.
Your shiny object.
Right. I can't always flood them with stuff, but I would say that my curiosity, my learning, being in Vistage and another leadership group I'm in, is things that helped distinguishes us as a really good dealer, a great culture in the firm, and doing things a little differently and always looking to improve. So I talk about that. I talk about our people, our process, and our culture. I think those are the three things that define who we are. I don't like to say I'm better than you or you're better than me. Like, there's some really good competitors out there. I believe that those are the three things that define us. You know, we have a few good new teammates that have come to us over the last 2 years. We've been really lucky. I think we're in a really good spot with people. As an owner, you know it's not so easy. I think that's the biggest challenge as a business owner we all have, is finding the right people.
Yep.
That are passionate about what they do, that they're aligned with who you are, who work hard for you and your clients, right? Are great teammates. We're in a really good position. And why do I say this? Because I listen to these people coming in, and after a month or two saying, oh my God, what a breath of fresh air this place is. And and I asked them why. It's just, I like the culture. I like the people. We have a selfless environment. We're very collaborative. People help each other. I'm sure you have the same culture.
Yeah, we try.
We're just all trying to help each other. It's not, I worked for a very large firm that was very big, and there were silos, and I just wanted to do everything a different way. Yeah. And I think that what we've built is special. People like working for us. I think the proof is, whether you like it or not, we won Crane's Best Places to Work 5 out of the last 7 years. Wow. That is because the people, I don't tell who best companies that they hire. The people are filling out surveys, they're being interviewed, and they feel it that way. So, and that comes out in the work. I always talk about it comes out in the work, because if people are happy in what they do, it's going to come out in the work and the product that we deliver to our client. Yeah. And that's what I care about the most, like you do. I want the client to have the best customer experience. And that is what would differentiate us than someone else, in my opinion, if they have that's my only goal, to have the best customer experience. And it doesn't always work.
I think that's great.
But that's the goal.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah. So as we wrap up, is there anything else we haven't covered that you'd like to tell the listeners?
Oh, God. Anything else that we haven't covered about?
I feel like we've covered a lot.
We've covered a lot. I mean, I know I've heard the other podcasts. I think you do a great job
thank you.
In the thoroughness.
I have no idea what I'm doing. Just
no, well, it's good that you took a chance and it's worked out, and I see that you enjoy it, and people do enjoy it, and people talk about it in the marketplace. I've thought about doing it in the past. I'm sure every guest has thought about doing it, but doing it, saying it and doing it are two different things. So I give you a lot of credit for actually doing something.
Well, that you want credit to the team here.
You have a good team here, yeah.
Make
is
sure
there anything else? I don't know. No, I don't have anything specifically.
Awesome.
But thank you for inviting me as a guest. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for taking the time. And you wanted to say one other thing. You're a really good, and I've learned this from you as well, about you have good touch points, right? Like, you reach out to me on certain, it almost seems like intervals, or you must have some sort of process that you go through. Maybe it just pops in your head, like, hey, I haven't talked to this guy in a while, or something like that. But you do that, and I try to do that too.
Yeah. I probably had a better process when I was younger in sales. I mean, as an owner, like, you're doing so many things. Yeah. When I was just in sales. I think it's just innate in me. Like, I don't have a specific process anymore. Like, okay. But I do. Look, I use our whole company uses a CRM, and in the CRM we write reminders and tasks to do, and they do pop up. Yeah. I don't know that I always write, hey, call Christian because it's been a while. There might be something that I thought of. I listened to a podcast and I do it. But I think it's important to touch base on a regular basis. My wealth manager, and I'm going to give him some cred here. His name is Mitchell Brill. He'll probably never listen to this podcast. Is the best at it. Like, he does have a process. He calls people, makes them feel good. It's just, the Jewish holidays are this week. He just called me today to say, I want to wish you and your family a happy holiday. Like, I've gotten a few texts this morning from people in the industry and friends like that. So, having a process to stay in touch with people is great. I totally recommend it. I recommend it to all my salespeople because that's what they're supposed to be doing, right? Even my PMs or anything else. We teach another class, and we haven't done it in a year. We might have done it here, called Sales for the Non-Sales Professional. We actually changed it to Sales for the Design Professional. Okay. And it's about, like, most project managers, most designers, right? Most architects, most project managers in my firm or they're not salespeople. Yeah. But we as owners need them to somehow not be the guy or the gal cold calling people, but engaging. And wouldn't it be nice if they came to you and say, hey, Christian, I just brought in another project from that client, because teaching them how to do it, right? So we try to teach people on things like that. It's not only just staying in touch, it's building rapport with people, knowing how to build rapport with people. Again, it comes natural to me, it comes natural to you. It doesn't come natural to maybe everyone in our organizations. And I think that's really important that we all take as owners to teach that and remind people how to do it. It's like you're doing it in real life, but maybe people freeze or don't think about it, right?
Yeah.
You have, what, 70, 80 people, whatever, so do I. Like
100 and something now.
100 and something now? Great. So you can't be everywhere, right? So I think teaching our staff and our teams to be able to do those things. No Christian's favorite football team. And when there's an article on the favorite football team, send it to him. The guy who taught me this class, because I came up with this seminar with another gentleman, is like, get to know their favorite color. I'm like, I'm not going to know their favorite. But the point was really get to know them,
get
right?
to know something,
So I think those are important. I know I went off on a tangent about staying in touch with people, but it's kind of correlated, right?
Yeah.
Like it's important. Without staying in touch with people and getting to know them and getting them to like you and you like them, you're not gonna grow. You're not gonna business. So.
Well, I love it. Well, Mark, thank you so much for being guest here on the Anti-Architect podcast and sharing, all the stories and everything about the furniture world. So to learn more about Mark Benhar and Benhar Office Interiors, you obviously visit their website, benharofficefurniture.com. You can also look at MillerKnoll.com, and you can find Mark on LinkedIn. So thank you again.
All right, thanks.
All right.